Good morning, everybody. Mark Finan here in the home weather office on this Thursday morning. It is now the 26th day of September 2024. This is the morning briefing. Going to talk about a couple of things today. First, going to talk about the temperature variations we're going to be seeing in Northern California here over the next week. And there is a little bit of model discrepancy about what we may see early next week. There is the potential for some days over 100 degrees as we head into the first part of October, which is kind of unusual. It's not very often that we see days over 100 degrees in October. It's happened. The latest we have seen 100 degrees in October is October 10th. But I'll talk about that because there's still a little bit of uncertainty about that. And I'll also talk a little bit about the Hurricane Helene, that'll be making landfall later on today. But first, let's start with what's happening locally, because as the sun comes up this morning, you can see that there is a good amount of marine layer here on the coast, and it looks as though there is even a little bit of marine layer that get pushed inland. That'll take a second to come up here. So some of you in parts of the Sacramento County or Placer County area may have even seen a little bit of that low overcast around first thing this morning, or a bit of cloud cover. And of course, the satellite does not want to load up. There it is. So this little bit of marine layer got pushed inland first thing this morning, now burning off. But the marine layer, nice and impressive, which is good. Yesterday, Sacramento only hit 83 degrees because of the marine layer and the onshore breeze. And if we take a look at the forward profiler this morning, you can see that the marine layer is still nice and deep, up around 2,000 feet. Now, if you want to have a cool day, the marine layer is only part of the equation. You also need the onshore flow. We had it yesterday, but today, not so much. So for that, we'll go over to the CANSAC and look at the wind for today. This is at 5 o'clock this afternoon, when usually we start to see some of the best onshore flow. And as you can see from Sacramento to the north, all these areas shaded in blue, the wind is light. There may even be a light north wind in here around Sacramento County and up through Sutter County and Yuba County, just a light onshore flow here. So even though there is a marine layer here on the coast, it is not going to get pushed very far inland. You'll have a big temperature discrepancy between what you'll see around San Francisco and Vallejo and then into Sacramento. There'll be quite a spread there, with Sacramento probably going up to the low 90s today, whereas temperatures yesterday were in the low to mid 80s. Then as we go into the day on Friday, I'll go to Friday afternoon, it's the same story. You can see the same area around Sacramento, very light winds, just a light onshore wind affecting areas around the immediate coastal areas, but really no impact from that for the valley. So with that, we are going to see a warming trend over the next couple of days. So that's getting us into the day on Friday. Let's talk more about what is perhaps going to be heading our way as we head into early next week and the potential for some hotter days ahead. So here's that little trough going by, and as it lifts out, we see just kind of flat ridging. But this is going to be a really interesting feature down here, this little cutoff low that the models, they keep continuing to show, but with relatively little impact. You would think that with a flow like this, we would see some comfortable weather. And as a matter of fact, this is Saturday. Saturday will be in the mid-90s. Sunday, maybe low to mid-90s. The latest NAM actually this morning was showing that we could see more of an onshore flow on Sunday, maybe keeping temperatures down a little bit. But that low isn't going to just make its way inland. Instead, it's going to kind of meander around, as you can see here. And as we get into the day on Monday, we have a big high here, a big high here. And then if you look at what this low is doing, it's actually giving offshore flow. So that means that, well, picture where the winds are coming from. It's Arizona, it's Las Vegas, and it's coming our way. So you have this sort of flow aloft, and then that can carry the hotter air aloft, let's say around 5,000 feet, your 850 millibar temperatures, your 700 millibar warmer temperatures. You can send that into Northern California, and that's why the models are depicting that around Monday and Tuesday, we may be seeing temperatures over 100 degrees as we start the first part of October. But it's really going to depend on the strength of what this meandering little cutoff low does, because that's what's really helping to drive that stronger offshore flow. And as you can see, that sticks around into the day on Tuesday, and then that low, man, it just kind of sticks around. It's just a really odd feature, and we'll have to see how the models deal with it and just how that whole thing pans out. So that's what's going to happen with our weather. Let's talk a little bit about the hurricane, because there is something I do want to point out. Let's start with the path of the hurricane. As I said, likely to make landfall later on today as a major hurricane. Right now, as of this morning, as I'm recording this, it has winds of 105 miles an hour, but it is likely going to strengthen at least to a Category 3, maybe a Category 4 by the time it makes landfall in what's known as the Big Bend area. And these areas highlighted in red right here, this is where we have active hurricane warnings in effect, basically from the Tampa Bay area all the way up into the Panhandle. So the thing that I wanted to point out was a big feature that's going to be talked about a lot today is storm surge. And as a storm goes this way, the storm surge is going to be strong on the west coast here of Florida. Because on the east side of the storm, that's where you get all the water piling up and then eventually pushed inland as the storm goes this way and the winds are going this way. Everything kind of piles up on this coast. So there is a neat little feature that the Hurricane Center has, and this is an experimental feature. But it's called the inundation. So in other words, this is a model of how deep the water may be inland. Let me go over here to the tag on this, the legend on this, and you'll be able to see that if you get into red, that's greater than 9 feet above ground would be inundated, and it goes. The blue areas you'll see are about a foot above ground, and then it goes down into the red. All right, so let's see what this model shows in terms of what they are predicting in terms of what is going to be going underwater and how deep it will be. So with that water going this way, you can see some areas around the Tampa area could see water maybe 2 to 3 feet higher than the average high tide. And then you get here onto the barrier islands north of the Tampa St. Pete area, and they're into that yellow and orange area, so 3 to 5 feet, maybe 3 to 6 feet. But once you go farther to the north, the areas of highest inundation are going to be these areas in red, and you'll hear about, I'm afraid you'll hear stories of, or just a general headline that Florida is going to see 9 feet of storm surge. Well, that certainly could be the case, and you can see it up here, these areas highlighted in red. But this is a lot like what happened last year with Hurricane Idalia. And Idalia took almost an exact same path, although, and it was actually Category 4 for a while last year as well. But this area of Florida, if you're not familiar with this area, once you get north of Tampa, about 50 miles or so north of Tampa, this area is sparsely populated. It is mostly marshy, swampy. There's forest land in here. And so while there will be quite a bit of storm surge in here, this is not going to be, or shouldn't be, as catastrophic as it could be if you saw a storm of similar strength going into a different area. So keep that in mind when you hear somebody say that there is going to be 9 feet of storm surge. Well, it depends on where it is. An area like this that is just kind of swampy is a big difference than if there was a 9-foot storm surge going into the Tampa Bay area. Either way, big storm going inland later on today, and that will be making a lot of weather headlines, but just keep a couple of things in perspective that this is going to be a lot like what we saw with Hurricane Idalia last year. And while that was a pretty bad storm, if you're going to have a storm go into Florida, going into the Big Bend area is about one of the best areas you could have a storm like that go into. So that's everything I've got for you this morning. Make it a great day. I'll talk with you later.